No warning. Goodbye. Just going. And maybe, just maybe, you already feel it. One will leave quietly. The other will walk away loudly, slamming the door with words they don't mean, or maybe words they finally do, and your first instinct will be to chase. Because life, real life, doesn't subtract without purpose. When people exit your story, it's often because their chapter is over. Some are not meant to be part of your next level. Their energy doesn't match your future. Their loyalty doesn't survive your growth. And their presence is a weight, not wings. When people vanish from your life, it's tempting to take it personally. You wonder what you did wrong, what you could have said differently, how you might have kept them around if only you had been more, done more, given more. But what if I told you their disappearance isn't punishment, it's positioning? What if their absence isn't a loss, but a signpost that you're being guided into a higher chapter of your life, one where they simply don't belong? We often assume that all relationships are meant to last forever. That assumption blinds us to one of the most powerful truths of life. Some people are only meant to be with you for a season, not a lifetime. They serve a purpose, deliver a lesson, or act as mirrors reflecting your growth, your wounds, or your patterns. But once their role is complete, life, God, the universe, divine timing, whatever you call it, has a way of removing them, and he usually doesn't ask for your permission. Their absence might feel sudden, even cruel. You might feel abandoned or rejected, but look closer. The signs were there long before they left. The late replies, the inconsistent support, the emotional distance, the feeling that something just wasn't right. You felt the misalignment before you admitted it out loud. You knew deep in your gut that something had shifted. You were just hoping to hold on a little longer. But the longer you hold on to something expired, the more it poisons your peace. So when they vanish, don't chase, don't beg, don't try to glue together something that broke because it was supposed to. Understand that this subtraction might be life's most loving act of redirection. It's removing what can't go with you into the next version of yourself. It's not rejection, it's protection. Think about it. When your life is shifting, when your mindset is maturing, when your purpose is becoming clearer, what happens? The people who resonated with the older version of you begin to feel uncomfortable. You no longer fit in the box they kept you in. You're speaking differently, thinking differently, moving with more clarity and conviction, and that threatens those who benefited from your confusion. That scares people who relied on your insecurity, your silence, your need for their approval. So they pull away, or they lash out, or they simply ghost you. And as painful as that might feel, it's actually one of the most honest gifts life can offer, revelation. It shows you who is real and who was only attached to your struggle. It exposes the ones who were holding your hand but resented your progress. And it clears your space so that you no longer waste energy on the ones who only drained it. You don't need everyone to like you. You don't need every relationship to be permanent. What you need is alignment, peace, reciprocity, growth. And sometimes you can't access those things until certain people exit your life. Their departure creates room for the right people to find you. The ones who see you, who support you without strings, who clap for your healing instead of competing with your progress. This is where your mindset matters most. If you see loss as failure, you'll cling to what's gone and block what's coming. But if you see loss as alignment, you'll begin to realize that life is editing your circle for your benefit. The people leaving aren't signs that you're unworthy. They're signs that you're rising. And not everyone has the capacity to rise with you. Understand, healing costs relationships. Peace costs popularity. Growth costs comfort. And choosing yourself will often trigger those who benefited when you didn't. But don't let their exit make you doubt your path. Instead, let it affirm it. You're not being punished when someone disappears. You're being redirected to the version of life you deserve. A life filled with genuine love, consistent energy, and relationships that feel like safety, not survival, a life where you don't have to beg to be understood, tolerated, or kept. So let them vanish. Let silence speak. Let absence reveal. Sometimes subtraction is the only way to see who truly mattered and what was never real to begin with. And if you stay faithful to your path, something amazing happens. The pain of their exit fades, but the peace of your freedom grows stronger every day. You will look back and thank life for removing what you once cried to keep. Because now you're lighter, now you're clearer, now you're finally in alignment with your purpose, your values, and your worth. The first person who will leave your life is the inconsistent one, the one whose presence has always been shaky, whose loyalty wavers depending on their mood, convenience, or needs. They've been hot and cold from the beginning, haven't they? One day they show up like they care deeply, and the next they vanish into silence without a word. You've spent more time wondering where you stand with them than actually standing beside them. You've explained away their behavior, justified their absence, and convinced yourself they just need time, space, or healing. But deep down, you know the truth. They were never really there to begin with. This person thrives in uncertainty. They like to keep one foot in and one foot out, not because they're unsure of you, but because they like options. You were one of them. When it suited them, they were available. When they needed comfort, advice, or validation, they reached out. They texted when they were bored. They called when they were lonely. But the moment you needed consistency, accountability, or depth, they disappeared. And yet, despite their absence, you kept making space for their return. You kept the door unlocked, the light on, and your heart open. Why? Because inconsistency is confusing, and confusion can feel a lot like hope. You told yourself maybe this time it's different, but it never was. Inconsistent people give just enough to keep you engaged, but never enough to make you feel secure. They are masters of mixed signals, experts in giving breadcrumbs instead of the full loaf. And the longer you chase clarity from someone who profits from your confusion, the more lost you become. So when this person finally disappears for good, don't be surprised. Be relieved. Their exit might sting, but their presence has been slowly draining you. Think about all the time you've spent waiting on replies, analyzing conversations, overthinking texts, and second-guessing your worth. Think about how many nights you went to bed wondering if you mattered to them. That's not connection. That's torment. And that's what inconsistency does. It doesn't kill love quickly. It erodes it slowly, wearing down your self-esteem until you're unsure of what you deserve. Their vanishing isn't a betrayal. It's a revelation. It shows you the truth they've been hiding all along. They were never committed to growing with you. They were only committed to keeping you around. There's a difference. One builds something solid, something real. The other builds nothing but emotional debt. Debt that you kept paying with your energy, your time, and your patience. Now it's time to break that cycle, because the truth is if someone really cares, they don't confuse you. They don't disappear without explanation. They don't dip in and out of your life like you're a backup plan. Real ones show up. Real ones stay. Real ones make you feel certain, not anxious. And if someone's presence in your life constantly requires you to lower your standards, silence your needs, or question your value, they're not meant to be there. You deserve relationships that feel safe, steady, and strong. You deserve people who don't just reach out when it's convenient, but who invest consistently, especially when it's hard. Because consistency isn't glamorous. It's not always exciting, but it's real. It's showing up. It's calling back. It's replying even when they're tired. It's caring without being prompted. It's choosing you again and again, not just when it's easy, but when it's real life. So when the inconsistent person finally fades away, let them. Don't try to make sense of it. Don't reach out one more time for closure. The lack of closure is your closure. Their silence speaks louder than any explanation they could offer. And your peace should never be up for negotiation with someone who treats your heart like an option. This is your reminder. Someone who truly values you will never make you guess. They'll be clear, they'll be kind, and they'll be present. Stop entertaining the unpredictable and start honoring the predictable pain it causes. You've wasted enough time romanticizing potential. It's time to start demanding presence. Because love is not measured by how good it could be if only they changed. Love is measured by how they show up now. Their disappearance before May ends isn't a tragedy, it's a release. It's the end of a loop that never served you. It's freedom from emotional limbo. It's the start of something new, clarity, peace, and connection with people who don't need to be reminded how valuable you are. People who don't need you to convince them to stay. You didn't lose anything. You released someone who never truly stayed, and now, with that space open, someone better, someone solid can finally walk in. Let them go, let them vanish, and more importantly, let yourself be free. The second person who will vanish from your life is the toxic one, the one you've outgrown, even if you haven't fully realized it yet. This is the person whose energy drains you, whose words cut more than they comfort, and whose presence feels heavier with every passing interaction. At some point, they were important to you. Maybe they helped you through something. Maybe they were around when no one else was. Maybe their chaos used to feel like connection because it matched the noise in your own life. But things have changed. You've changed. And that change is making them uncomfortable. Toxic people don't always start out as obvious villains. Sometimes they begin as the closest ones to us, friends, partners, even family. People who knew us when we were unsure, broken, or lost. But as we heal, as we grow, as we begin to rise and reclaim ourselves, they feel the shift. They sense that their control is slipping, their influence fading, and instead of celebrating your progress, they resist it. They start to criticize you subtly. They throw passive-aggressive comments your way. They remind you of your past to keep you from fully embracing your future. Why? Because your growth threatens their comfort zone. You see, toxic people often rely on you staying small. They feel secure when you're unsure, manageable when you're dependent, predictable when you're stuck. But when you begin to set boundaries, when you stop engaging in their drama, when you choose peace over pleasing, their power over you dissolves. And that's when things change. They get to lash out, or maybe they ghost you, or they accuse you of being different or selfish or too busy now. But the truth is, you're just no longer available for dysfunction. You're no longer willing to shrink yourself for the sake of keeping them close. Their toxicity isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the subtle way they make you feel guilty for doing well. It's how they always manage to shift the focus back to themselves. It's how they belittle your achievements, question your motives, and undermine your confidence, all while claiming to love you, but love doesn't feel like constant walking on eggshells. It doesn't make you doubt your worth. It doesn't feed off your insecurities and silence your voice. The most dangerous thing about toxic people is how they normalize dysfunction. You begin to accept emotional roller coasters as passion. You confuse criticism for honesty. You mistake their inconsistency for mystery. And before you know it, you're caught in a cycle, trying to prove your value to someone who benefits from your self-doubt. That's not love, that's manipulation. So when this person finally leaves your life, it might feel jarring. Maybe they'll leave in an explosive moment, accusing you of changing, or maybe they'll slip away in silence, retreating into the shadows once they realize they no longer control the narrative. Either way, their exit is not a loss. It's a detox. It's a breaking of the chains that kept you tied to emotional chaos. It's the end of a chapter you've long outgrown. Don't look back. Don't chase after someone whose presence required you to abandon your peace. Their exit is a loud declaration that your spirit is ready for something healthier, lighter, more aligned with the person you're becoming. You're not obligated to carry old connections into your new life, especially ones built on guilt, fear, or manipulation. Yes, there may be moments where you miss them. That's natural. Even toxic connections come with memories, with history, with shared moments that once mattered, but don't mistake nostalgia for a reason to return. Missing someone doesn't mean they were good for you. It just means a part of you remembers what once was, but you can't let that memory overshadow the damage they caused. You deserve relationships that honor your growth, not resent it. People who uplift you, not compete with you. People who celebrate your healing, not try to reopen old wounds. And sometimes those people don't enter your life until the wrong ones leave. That's why their vanishing isn't something to mourn, it's something to honor. It's a spiritual clearing, a space being made for better. Let it happen. Let them go. Don't try to fix what was never healthy to begin with. Don't try to explain yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you. This is your time to rise, to walk into a new level of self-respect, self-love, and emotional clarity. The person who made you feel small, who fed off your silence, who punished you for setting boundaries, they were never meant to stay. They were only there to teach you the power of letting go. And now, with them gone, you can finally breathe. You can finally grow without being anchored by someone who never wanted to see you fly. So let their absence be your breakthrough. Let their vanishing be the proof that you're leveling up. Not everyone deserves access to your life, especially not those who mistook your kindness for weakness. You've outgrown their world, and now it's time to step fully into yours. Your growth will trigger their exit, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because you're finally doing something right. You're evolving. You're shedding the old habits, beliefs, and attachments that once kept you small, and that makes certain people uncomfortable. They were fine with you when you were stuck, when you doubted yourself, when you played it safe, but now that you're stepping into a more confident, self-aware version of yourself, their energy no longer matches yours, and that mismatch will force separation. You might not have noticed it at first. Growth doesn't always show up as loud, radical change. Sometimes it begins quietly. You stop explaining yourself. You start saying no without guilt. You begin to prioritize peace over drama, solitude over fake company, progress over popularity. And little by little, the people who were once close to you start pulling away. They may not say it out loud, but they feel it. They're losing access to the version of you they were most comfortable with. The version of you who overgave, the version who tolerated disrespect, the version who second-guessed every decision, who asked for permission to be themselves, who dimmed their light to make others comfortable. That version is fading, and the new you doesn't shrink to fit into places you've outgrown. And because of that, certain people will distance themselves, not because you're wrong, but because your growth forces them to confront their stagnation. Growth is a mirror. It reflects back to others what they've chosen not to change in themselves. When you start showing discipline, it threatens their laziness. When you pursue healing, it exposes their avoidance. When you elevate your mindset, it challenges their excuses. And instead of rising with you, many will resent you, not because they truly hate you, but because deep down they hate being reminded of what they're not willing to do. You'll start to hear it in their words. You've changed. You think you're better than us now. You're too busy for the real ones. These aren't just casual comments. They're coded messages. What they're really saying is, you're no longer controllable. You're no longer validating my comfort zone, and I don't know how to relate to this new version of you. Instead of adjusting to your evolution, they choose to exit, and that's okay. Not everyone is meant to grow with you. Some people are chapters, not the whole story. They came into your life to play a role at a particular stage. They may have helped you learn, helped you cope, helped you survive, but their role ends where your transformation begins. And trying to drag old connections into a new version of yourself will only slow you down. Growth requires space, requires pruning. It requires releasing what can't survive in the soil of your becoming. This is where it gets difficult, because even though you're leveling up, the loss still hurts. These people may have been close to you. They may have shared memories, laughs, late night talks. Letting them go doesn't mean those moments weren't real, but it does mean that the season has changed. And if you don't honor that shift, you'll be forced to keep shrinking just to keep them around. Real growth always costs something. Sometimes it costs approval. Sometimes it costs comfort. Sometimes it costs relationships you never thought you'd lose. But in the end, what you gain is worth far more than what you lose. You gain alignment, you gain clarity, you gain the kind of peace that doesn't come from people pleasing, but from living in truth. And that truth is simple. The version of you that's rising cannot afford to stay loyal to an environment that keep you stuck. Let them go. Not out of anger or bitterness, but out of love for yourself and for your path. Wish them well, but keep walking. Don't water dead plants just because they once bloomed. Don't carry guilt for outgrowing a version of yourself they were comfortable with. That's not your burden to bear. You didn't betray them. You just chose not to betray yourself anymore. Eventually, the right people will show up. The ones who are inspired by your growth, not intimidated by it. The ones who clap when you win, not question why it's not them. The ones who don't need you to shrink so they can feel tall. These are your people. And they can only come when you clear space, when you allow the ones who can't meet you at your level to walk away. Your evolution is not up for debate. Your healing is not a threat. Your growth is not arrogance. It's necessary, it's earned, it's divine. Let it push away what doesn't belong and trust that what remains and what arrives will be worthy of the person you're becoming. Some people will vanish from your life before this month ends because God is making room for your elevation. You may not see it yet. You might feel confused, even hurt. You may question why certain people are falling away, why conversations feel different, why once tight bonds now feel distant and strained. But this isn't punishment, it's preparation. When God is about to take you somewhere higher, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, he begins to remove the weight, and often those weights look like people. Not everyone can follow you to your next level, not because they're evil or bad, but because their energy, their mindset, and their habits aren't equipped for the place God is taking you. You've been asking for more peace, more purpose, more clarity, more success. But to walk into more, you have to carry less. And that means letting go of those who would only pollute the blessing. Some people you love still think small. They speak doubt. They choose comfort over growth. They laugh at vision. They normalize mediocrity. And while you once walked in step with them, you're no longer aligned. And God sees what you cannot. Keeping them around would delay the journey. There are seasons in life where pruning must happen. Just like a tree needs to shed old, dying branches to thrive, you must shed old relationships that no longer nourish your purpose. These are people who may have loved you, but they loved a version of you that no longer exists. They were attached to your brokenness, your fear, your doubt. They were comfortable with the version of you who stayed quiet, stayed low, stayed hidden. But now you're coming into yourself. You're waking up to your value. You're listening to divine instruction. And that kind of alignment will always cost relationships. You may notice that some people begin to act strange, not because you did anything, but because your energy changed. You don't gossip like you used to. You don't chase validation like you once did. You don't entertain drama, small talk, or bitterness. You're more focused now, more intentional, more protective of your spirit. And that unsettles the ones who were used to accessing you when you were vulnerable, distracted, and doubtful. They won't always walk away with grace. Some will accuse you. Others will go silent. But all of it is part of the pruning. Let them go. Don't chase what God is trying to remove. When he closes a door, he's not being cruel. He's preserving your purpose. What you don't see behind the scenes is how those people were going to hurt your next season. How their envy would have grown into sabotage, how their flattery would have turned into manipulation, how their presence would have poisoned your path. God isn't taking away your support, he's removing the liability. You can't soar while still tied to dead weight. And yes, it's painful. We don't just lose people, we lose memories, laughter, loyalty, shared dreams. But trust that what God subtracts, he also replaces. Only with better, stronger, more aligned. The right people will enter your life not to use you, but to grow with you. They won't drain your energy, they'll multiply it. They won't distract you, they'll sharpen you. But you can't receive them while still clinging to the wrong ones. out of nostalgia or fear. At this moment you're in may feel like loneliness, but it's not. It's sacred separation. It's God calling you into isolation so he can speak clearly, move freely, and shape you without interference. In the silence, he gives strategy. In the distance, he grants discernment. In the empty space, he prepares the overflow. Don't resist it. Don't rush to fill the void. Some exits are divine. Some losses are actually victories in disguise. If they left, it's because they couldn't carry the weight of your destiny. You're stepping into a season that requires fewer people, but deeper purpose. And only those who are meant for that level will stay. Let time reveal what words cannot. Let distance expose what proximity kept hidden. The truth is, people can be close and still not be for you. They can laugh with you and still not root for you. But God sees hearts. He sees intentions. And when he says enough, it's for your protection. So walk forward without apology. You don't need to explain your growth, your boundaries, or your new path. Those who are meant for you will recognize your change as evolution, not betrayal. They will support the calling, not compete with it. And they will honor your light, not try to dim it. Before this month ends, someone will walk away. Someone will fall silent. Someone will disconnect. And it will hurt. But if you trust the process, you'll look back and thank God for the exit, because had they stayed, you would have missed the elevation. Sometimes the blessing isn't who comes, it's who leaves. There's one more person who will vanish from your life before this month ends, and it might surprise you. It's the version of you who was comfortable living beneath your potential. That outdated self, the one who doubted, delayed, and diminished their own worth, is about to disappear. And yes, it may feel unfamiliar. You might grieve them, but you're not losing yourself. You're shedding the layers that no longer serve the person you're becoming. Growth always begins with a death, not always of people, not always of relationships, but of identities. You've been carrying versions of yourself that were born out of survival, pain, insecurity, or fear. The part of you that stayed silent to avoid conflict. The part that accepted less because they thought they weren't worthy of more. The part that settled, compromised, and apologized for wanting something better. That part of you was necessary once. It kept you going through tough seasons. But now it's become a limitation, and it's time to let it go. This internal shift isn't always visible to others, but you feel it. You feel it in the way your spirit no longer tolerates certain conversations, and how exhausted you become around situations that once excited you, and how deeply your soul longs for peace, purpose, and truth. That's not moodiness. It's evolution. Your old self is dying, and even though it hurts, it's the clearest sign that you're about to step into something greater. What no one tells you is that healing can feel like loss. When you outgrow the need to please everyone, you might feel guilty. When you stop playing small, you might feel arrogant. When you finally say, I deserve better, it might feel selfish. But that discomfort is just the old self resisting its own end. It's not who you are anymore. It's just who you used to be, fighting to survive in a space it no longer belongs. Don't let it win. The truth is, we get addicted to familiar pain. We know how to live in chaos, in insecurity, in scarcity. We master the art of functioning while unfulfilled. So when real change comes, when peace starts knocking, when abundance shows up, when confidence begins to bloom, it can feel threatening. Not because it's wrong, but because it's new. But you cannot become who you were born to be if you're still loyal to who you were taught to be. That former self has served its time. Thank it, honor it, then release it. You'll notice yourself doing things differently now. You'll speak up when you used to stay quiet. You'll choose solitude over shallow company. You'll invest in growth instead of wasting time. And while this may create friction, confusion, or even distance from others, it's not because you're becoming cold. It's because you're finally becoming real, authentic, whole. And the more you step into this new self, the less you'll recognize the person you used to be. This doesn't mean you'll never doubt again or feel fear again. You will. But the difference is now you'll move despite it. You'll understand that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to move forward anyway. And as you continue to rise, your old patterns will scream for your attention. But you'll learn to say no, to delay the reaction, to sit with the discomfort, to choose discipline over impulse. That's how you know the shift is real. When your habits change, your decisions shift, and your standards rise. What's beautiful, and often painful, is that your external world will take time to catch up to this internal shift. People will still treat you like the old version of you. Opportunities will test your patience. Life will still throw challenges, but you won't react the same way. Because now you're no longer trying to survive, you're trying to thrive. You're not begging to be chosen, you're choosing yourself. And that self-respect will terrify some people, but it will also attract exactly what you've been praying for. Let this version of you fade with grace. You don't need to shame the past to grow beyond it. You don't need to regret who you were. Every past self brought you here, but now it's time to embrace the upgrade, to embody the mindset, energy, and confidence you've always admired in others. It's already in you. It just needed permission to emerge. So if things feel shaky, unstable, or unfamiliar right now, don't panic. You're not falling apart. You're becoming. The cocoon must break for the wings to open, and right now life is tearing apart everything that can't survive at your next level, including old versions of you. Trust the process. Mourn if you must, but don't go back. You've come too far to settle for the safety of who you used to be. Before this month ends, the version of you that played small, accepted crumbs, feared rejection, and ran from purpose, that version will vanish, and in its place will rise someone clearer, stronger, wiser, someone who walks with intention, who protects their peace, who demands respect, and who no longer fears their own power.